BMW's new 1 Series. I made a video on this on my second channel talking about this design, and the more I look at this design, I see the potential is there because I think the fundamentals are in place when it comes to the design, but I also want to tweak it to try to bring out that potential of the 1 Series. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. I'm going to take the new 2025 BMW 1 Series. I'm going to apply some inspiration from the previous generation BMW M2 onto this design. Now let's see how this is going to turn out. But before we jump into the redesign, just quickly want to show you the comparison between the new 1 Series and the old one, and let you know why I prefer the old one. The simple reason is because I think the old one feels more like a BMW, like a proper BMW. It has this more automotive design to it compared to the more static looking front end and overall graphics of the 2025 one. For example, these triangles that we see in pretty much every single BMW these days, very chiseled design. I do like the headlights. I'm going to work a little bit on the internal pieces here and make this a more dynamic with the internal LEDs, daytime lights that we have inside. Also going to switch up the grills. We need to have a separation right here between the two kidneys. Going to switch up the entire lower section here as well, and just implement the M2's lower section onto this car. I think it's going to look fantastic. But looking at the old one here and comparing it to the new one, this still has a connection between the grill kidneys here, but there's still more. I don't know. It just feels better to have them be a little bit bigger like this and rounded in the corners. I do like what BMW is trying to do here by stretching them out horizontally on each sides, because it's going to make the front end look a little more wide than what it does here. These sit a little too high for me, and I want to shrink them down. I think I made a redesign on this when this first came out as well, back in 2021 or something like that. Now looking at the side view here, there's not really a lot of changes. We can see that the key line flow is still the same. I love this color that we have on the 2022 one, and you can see that we have the same upswing here connecting to the corner of the tail light, and we also have this line in the middle. Very front wheel drive proportions, because the hood sticks up so far here. There's a lot of mass right here, and this is what gives it away as a front wheel drive car, even though you can have this as an all wheel drive. Now looking at the rear end here, this is, I'm gonna make a redesign of both the front and the rear. This is 10 times better looking than the new 2025. I'm not sure what's going on down here. Look at the diffuser here. We have a box or a rectangle, super static design down here. I'm not sure what they cut it in like this. The new 2025 1 Series feels like if you were to sketch these cars by hand, I can't figure out the line flow of a hand drawing or sketch when it comes to these graphics, for example, because if I were to draw this, sketch this out, I can't really make it, you know, it feels very hard and rough to just make this cut here. Same goes here. Instead of having smooth, nice, organic lines that we're used to seeing from BMWs of just about 5 years ago. And we also have this piece. I'm going to redesign these taillights as well, and also remove this little stick that just sticks right up in the ocean of white in this area. Change all of that and also switch out the wheels. But looking at the old one, it just looks so much better, so much more BMW. This is what I'm talking about. It just feels nice and easy to sketch this out by hand. The new one feels like it was designed in a computer, a 3D software, alias automotive or something like that, from the very start. We're not going to touch the interior in this case, but again, the old one with the iDrive, I do believe this is the iDrive 7 system right here. Just look at how much better integrated this is than just having a static 12.3 inch or whatever these are screens right here on the dash. This has a housing for it, and in addition to that, we also had these beautiful array of buttons down here, something that I wish car companies would bring back. Now instead, there is absolutely nothing here. Everything is inside the software being pixelated. So with that said, let's jump into the redesign, and as we do that, I'm going to talk more about the spec and tech. The Europeans have it good. They also get the Audi S3 Sportback and the AMG A45, but for some reason we're not getting the cool hatchbacks in the United States, if we're getting hatchbacks, we do get the GLA, for example. They need to lift it up a little bit, and as you know, we need to add some plastic pieces, trim pieces around the wheelhouses and so on. Just make it more ugly, and that for some reason is going to make it sell better in the United States instead of having to be a proper sporty, low-sitting hatchback. So unfortunately, we're not going to get this 1 Series in this case. We're going to get the 2 Series, and that is going to look identical to this in the front end. Of course, the rear end is going to have more of a sedan-like proportion. So this retains the front-wheel drive architecture. The exterior styling is evolutionary. It still remains recognizable as a 1 Series, but with sharper, everything is so sharp and chiseled everywhere with 90-degree angles. It kind of ruins this. As I said, the automotive design is just gone for BMW these days. Came back with the Skytop concept just a few weeks ago based on the 8 Series, and that is the direction I want to see BMW going. At the rear, the taillight looked like they came straight from the latest X2, which I'm also definitely not a fan of what BMW did there. The M Performance get quad exhaust systems from the X1 M35i. You have a rather odd grille design, specifically for the 120, where you have diagonal slots and also vertical slots. There is a lot going on in the grille, even inside of the key graphic features of the new 1 Series. While most of the newer BMWs have flush door handles, the 1 Series keep the traditional layout of just regular door handles on the sides. This is the company's first car where you can actually get it with a contrasting black roof. And I do think that looks good, specifically if you have a white car. Nice contrast there. The wheel sizes ranges from 17 inches all the way up to 19 inches. I would definitely go for the 19 inches on this car. I do think it fills out the wheelhouses nicely, even though I'm going to switch up the wheels in this redesign as well. So the 2025 1 Series gets BMW's iDrive 9 infotainment system with dual screens. Everything is digital, as we talked about, a 10.25 inch for the gauge cluster and a 10.7 inch diagonal infotainment screen. So we don't have the bigger ones, 12.3, that you get in the 3 Series and up. Most of the conventional buttons are gone, which seems to be a very hot trend right now that, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of. The 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission can be optionally ordered with paddle shifters, which is standard on the M135i. The interior is also now fully vegan with this new generation. To the hood, you have a 2-liter turbocharged gas engine putting out 312 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds, which is not bad at all. And it's limited, the 135, to 155 miles per hour. And then you have the base 120. So even though that only has 168 horsepower and 206 pound-feet of torque from a 1.5-liter turbo 3-cylinder, still goes 0 to 60 in about 7.8 seconds, which I don't think is too bad. I mean, 0 to 60 times I think are a little bit overrated these days with all the 1,000 horsepower EVs that come out. I just had a Mazda as a press car for 1 week, and it's one of the best, most fun cars I've driven this past year, and it only has 181 horsepower. So there is a lot more than just 0 to 60 times to make a car an exciting driving experience. And this 120 tops out at 140 miles per hour. The next 2 Series Grand Coupe, which will come here to the United States, will pretty much have the exact same specifications as the 1 Series, with the addition of this more sedan-like trunk in the rear end. The 1 Series is scheduled to go on sale in October of this year. So look at this redesign and what we're doing here to the changes of this car. I just think this car, as I said, it does have a lot of potential. I think the headlights maybe sit a little too high up on the fenders, but at the same time, with these front-wheel drive proportions, maybe that's a good thing to have the headlights sit a little higher, because we have so much mass above the front axle going up to the hood, looking at a side view, that it kind of suits it to have them sit a little bit higher. But we definitely need to separate the kidneys in the front end. I don't understand why BMW put this radar sensor, this square radar sensor, right in the middle of the kidneys. It just makes zero sense to me. You could have it lower in the lower section of the grille, for example, and not ruin one of the key iconic graphic features of BMW by just splashing it and connecting the two kidneys in the middle. So I'm going to switch that up. I do that here, and of course adding the M2 front end to this design as well. I love that design from the M2 competition. It just looks so good, and I think it suits this car because it still has a lot of chiseledness and angles to it, but still retains this automotive design feel. Also switching out the wheels, of course, on both the front and the rear view. Now looking at the rear view here, want to remove this cut that we have in the taillights. That is one feature that is so unnecessary and just brings in this more industrial design feel again to the design. And I also want to remove the lower section and this little black stick that sticks out on the side of the lower bumper. And again, bringing in the exhaust and the diffuser from the M2 competition. Again, I think it just suits this car. I also want to have, you see the LEDs in the rear light, in the taillights? The outer LEDs, they have a down angle to them, so I want to have that down angle be connected to some feature in the bumper, having this very German style of bumper where you have some features from the taillights and flowing down, water falling down into the rear bumper. So I'm adding a bit of a chamfer going around there and then curving up and connecting to those key graphics features in the rear, and which is the outer section of the LED. So that's my redesign, and here is the before and after. This is the result. Here is the before, and we have the after. Here I think this just looks so much better, even though the taillights still look a little bit too static for me, but just bringing in some inspiration from the previous generation M2 competition, I think it brings back some of that BMW-ness that I'm looking for and that I'm hoping that BMW is going to go back to in the future.